And she was
Holy
like,
shit.
no one can know. And she's like, because this piece should be on like, you know, a freaking,
Yeah.
you know, like
Hello,
museum.
illegal.
Welcome to the Seraphine podcast. I'm Seraphine Arocha, and today we are meeting with Kyrie Quinn. Hello, how are you, beautiful?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I am so happy we're sitting down doing this.
Yes, me too.
Kyrie and I actually serendipitously met in Lawrence, and we actually didn't formally meet like, hi, I'm Seraphine, hi, I'm Kyrie. It's just like we recognized each other, and her husband, Harry, as she likes to call him, or Harrison, as he probably is going to force me to call him.
Yes.
He is actually someone that my husband kind of, you know, had more exchanges with.
Yep.
Me and Johnny lived in a church in Lawrence. It's a long story. We'll talk about that a little later because the podcast is about Kyrie. So we're going to talk to you about fashion, interior design, philanthropy, all the things that kind of make up you right now, and how you're pivoting from, you know, coming out of college and being 25, but being super ambitious and that pressure.
Yeah.
And figuring out what it is that is your calling.
I love it. Let's do
So
it.
let's begin. You went to school at KU.
Yes.
And obviously, we made that clear.
Yes.
And why? Why KU?
So I applied to two schools. I applied to FITM, which is a fashion institute in Los Angeles, and then KU is my backup. Both my older brothers went to KU. We've had like 27 Jayhawks in the family. And so I was like, hell no, I'm not going to KU, but it'll be my backup. Yeah. And 2 months before school started, my mom was like, no, you are not going to LA, which I get. I was a 17-year-old from Nebraska.
Yep.
And she was like, you're going to get eaten alive. No.
Yeah.
So QKU. And yes.
Rock Shock Jayhawk.
So I'm like, okay, KU, I wanted to study fashion. They have zero fashion programs at KU.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, journalism. So I did strategic communications, so journalism major. And I interned throughout college in fashion industries as much as I could. So yeah, KU ended up being a blessing in disguise. That's obviously where I met Harry, and I had a blast.
I think it's so cool too, because I was a journalism background, and the funny thing is I pivoted so hard. I think my first job was in Topeka, like News Source 49, and I'm like knee up and pig shit, and I'm with the
hell yeah,
and I'm like, I don't want to get paid this amount of money for this amount of work.
For anything.
I want to do my own podcast when I'm 43. I would have made a hard, big 22-decade pivot to get back into journalism. The funny thing is I was in marketing too. And the great thing about marketing is that it speaks every freaking language.
Totally.
Everyone needs to sell whatever it is that they're selling. We need to buy. We're a buying culture. Yep. So fashion, what did you have a moment at KU to where, you know, I mean, you do get in the bubble sometimes where people are like, well, you know, it's not realistic, but like you actually went for it, didn't you? You did an internship in New York, which is pretty ballsy.
Yeah, I did. I had never been to New York, but something in me like switched. I was so LA. I was like, after school, I'm moving to Los Angeles. I'm going to do anything I can to work in fashion. And then 2 years, and I tried to even transfer. So my second year, I was like, screw this, I'm still going to LA. Lots of things happened for me to not, and then something switched, and I was like, I want to go to New York. I feel like fashion in New York is just a different beast.
Oh, it is.
And so I used every connection possible, and I got an internship at, it was called Li & Fung, and I actually ended up working in their beauty department. But they were a really cool company. They did all of the designer collaborations with Target.
Oh, that's cool. That when they brought high end.
Yes,
in.
yes.
I actually remember that and being so blown away. They brought like Victoria Beckham in.
Oh, like Jean-Paul Gaultier.
Yeah.
Alexander McQueen.
Yeah.
All the things. And so I would try and sit in every meeting possible I could because I was just like, I want to learn all about this.
It so makes sense now with what you do as your side project, because you are interior design for Quinn Real Estate. We'll go into that. But I'm curious because your fashion eye, it takes a mature eye to really put things aesthetically together.
Yeah.
And I think New York is trial by fire, and you really see all kinds there. I think that, high end, low end, you came right at the perfect time, because I think in the early 2000s, it was like all high end and like there wasn't so many options for low end, and it did, and then all of a sudden copy culture came in.
Yes.
So you probably know now what is really like a good editorial eye and what's just cheap.
Totally. And I think that there's now, thankfully, there can be a mix of both, but especially with fast fashion, I mean, it's just like shit just flying off the racks that you wear once and it like falls apart. And it's funny because when I was at that internship, I remember sitting in one of the meetings and the lady in charge of the designer collaboration, she was like, who do you think we should, pivot to next? And she just asked the whole group. And of course I raised my hand. I'm like, yeah, I'm from Kansas. I know everything. And, I was like, I think you guys need to do like a vintage collection with, like whether you're taking from, old collections of a designer, or you're kind of like Urban Outfitters did. I think it's upcycled, or urban renewal was what it was called. And so I love that blend of editorial, it can be super high fashion, but then a little grunge, retro thrown into it. So,
well, and this is where we're going, because obviously sustainability and what we're doing to our environment with mass amounts of cheap clothing that we get rid of, that honestly Salvation Army is not just giving away. It eventually goes somewhere where we all pretend it doesn't go.
Right, exactly.
So, I was so fascinated too, because you have a very really clear aesthetic, and it can be an intimidating aesthetic because you put together some really interesting looks. I'm actually wearing one of her looks today. So what she does is she'll take blazers, jackets, coats, pieces that will be in your wardrobe for a while, you're not going through the t-shirt line quite yet.
No.
So, here what I'm loving is you're taking this jacket and then she's hand painting Western inspired symbols. And again, the other thing I really appreciate is, we talked off camera about our love of designers, and we talked about like Ralph Lauren. And you talk about how do you bring an aesthetic that is, we're in the Midwest, right? And then how do you make vintage cool? Because a lot of times you go in these vintage stores and I get overwhelmed. And
it's overwhelming.
When I shopped with you, you have such an eye to where you're like, no, yes, no.
Yeah.
Like, so how did you get that editing eye? What do you, if you were going to give some people who are listening, what I would say, vintage, like thrifting, like these are my top 3 things I look for. What would you say?
I would say if you can find a leather jacket, and you have to be picky, but I think that like hardy fabrics, if you can find the hardy fabrics in a vintage store, so leather, really like rigid denim, like an old pair of Levi's, which is so hard to come by now because everybody takes them, flips them and sells them, which is great. But so I would say hardy denim, leather, and then I love a vintage fur. I mean, if you can get your hands on one.
Totally. And that the hard part is too, is like, you don't feel so bad about wearing fur.
Right.
If It's already been
Vintage.
there and done that.
Yes.
I had a friend back in the day who was a huge like fashion makeup and hairstyling person, and she had a collection because she was a vintage thrifter, and her whole place looked amazing. And to this day, I won't name who she is because it's illegal to have them. She found a baboon coat, and it literally looks like it sprouts off of you.
Oh my gosh.
And I did a Halloween shoot, and I put fangs on with the baboon coat, and it's the
That's
most
insane.
beautiful thing. It's from the 1920s. And she was
Holy
like,
shit.
no one can know. And she's like, because this piece should be on like, a freaking,
Yeah.
like
Hello,
museum.
illegal.
Yeah. No one ever wants to do that now. And please.
Right.
But at that time in the 20s when it was made, it was like, okay, just another animal.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Throw it on, baby.
But it's cool though to see. And honestly, I wear a lot of faux fur, and the faux fur now is badass.
oh my God, it's like next level.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the hell it is, but it's good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So we've got faux fur, or it's been used and it is not a new animal
Yes.
dead fur.
Yeah, but
We
you
have
can get
leather,
some-
right?
you're
Totally,
right.
Because I wear leather shoes. But then also, what else would be good? Would it be like hats, jewelry? Like, what do you
Oh my
think?
God, yeah. I think if you can find a cool hat, I love hats.
Yeah.
Hats just like elevate any outfit. And they don't have to be Western. I mean, like throw on a cool fedora or like a little newsboy cap or
Yeah.
whatever they're called. So yeah, I would say hats. I think rings, if you can find some cool
Yes.
rings, which is obviously got to fit them to your finger.
Yep.
But yeah, so jewelry, hats, bags are cool too. Accessories. I think accessories because they all have a really cool story.
What's the biggest ripoff at a thrift or a vintage store, you think, where you're like, oh, girl, do not buy
What
that?
the hell is that?
Yeah.
I would say don't buy a flannel flannel shirt from a vintage store.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you can go buy that same thing, throw some bleach on it, and
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I feel you on that. So you made this business as a side project, which is now actually like I'm seeing you kind of gain some momentum in this because I was out the other night with you and it was cool to see you made a jacket for Harrison's brother and it was so good.
oh my gosh.
I know you're laughing and you roll your eyes,
Yeah.
but I was like, and I mean, he looked darn good at it, and I love this. So,
Oh, well, he is a massive man.
Yeah.
And I underestimated how big of a jacket he was going to need.
Yeah.
So it was fun to source though. So I I go thrifting for the jackets. Not always, but in this case, I thrifted a jacket and found one his size. And he said he wanted a rooster on it, and that's about all he told me. And so I painted a rooster on the back and random things all around it. It's just fun. And I've had a lot of friends reach out to me and they're like, everybody's just kind of confused,
Yeah.
which I kind of love the confusion because I'm like, well, yeah, keep it mysterious. But so yeah, I have a lot of friends being like, I want a jacket. What do I do?
Yeah.
And so I send people out a survey and, it's like, what's your favorite color? Do you have any lucky numbers? What's your zodiac sign? Do you have any symbols that are important to you? And I just kind of base a jacket around that.
That's
and
like a talisman jacket.
Totally.
I love that. So
Yeah.
it's called Bone.
Yes.
Bone Boutique.
Yes.
And right now you're going to be forming like an Etsy page
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
And then what's your hope for it?
I would say in the future, I would love to have a space, just a really, really cool storefront.
Yeah.
That is probably multi-use because with interior design, I love sourcing vintage pieces. Even, you can go on Facebook Marketplace and just find crazy cool stuff. Just keeping that thrifted, idea in your head. So I think it'd be so cool to have kind of a warehouse where people come in, there's cool jackets, hats, furniture.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a DJ come in on the weekends. I mean,
Right?
just make
Give
it
a
an
vibe.
experience.
Make it a vibe. And the thing I appreciate about you is that, you work full time. Mm-hmm. You do this as a side project.
Yes.
And, for me, I love to get sidetracked on the artistic projects people do.
Yep.
Because a lot of people don't understand the grind behind business.
Yeah.
And usually you have to have and work for another person before you can be your own boss.
Yes.
So you now are doing interior design. Talk to me about how, how you can bring what you love, the fashion eye, the editorial eye. How do you bring it into a building space? How does that translate?
I think that it kind of all circles back to like that survey, if you will, that I give people for their jackets. You just have to meet with somebody and kind of get their vibe. Just sit down, talk to them. What do you love? Where do you love to go? What inspires you? And in a building, I mean, a building, a home, anywhere is just, an embodiment of somebody's personality. Or if it's, if it were a retail space, it's like, what does your company stand for? What do you guys want to portray to everybody else? So when I do it, I go in with homeowners and, they're building a home. And I just meet with the family and learn more about them. Maybe they're super outdoorsy, or maybe they love Santa Fe. So it's like, okay, your wheels start turning and you just kind of go from there. And you have to trust your gut. I mean, with fashion, with interior design, there's no wrong or right answer. It's just whatever you want. And that's what I like to live by too. It's like, do your thing. If you want to put, a huge statue of a Joker juggling balls in your living room, do it.
Exactly.
And
you live once.
Yeah.
And I think people are so in this weird space of risk taking right now because of politically correct. God forbid we talk about leather and fur.
Right.
I'm like, give me a break.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, in terms of interior design, have you had to take, what's been your biggest risk? Because I'm sure people come, they show you like, this is my dream house, this is the marble floor I want, and blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, wait a second, this is your budget.
Right.
Or, this is what's realistic for the design of the house.
Yep.
How do you take risk in interior design?
I would say when people bring inspiration to you, like so many times people are like, I want a fully marble wall. And you're like, okay, well, you could get like a marble piece this big for your budget. So I think the risk is pivoting for them, just saying, let me take the lead and just trust me. You want this aesthetic, but you can't afford this aesthetic. So let's do this, get you a similar aesthetic, but for a deal. Or within your budget. So I think the risk is just navigating like how to go about budget.
Yeah.
I think that even the biggest budget, everybody's on some sort of budget. And so I think the risk taking is just like trusting your gut to say, okay, I know that if I do this or if I use this material instead of this one, it'll come out similar, but like sometimes it doesn't. Let's be real. There's been a few times where it's like, oh God, that didn't turn out right. Yeah. But that's,
but again, it's
usually not the case.
And you live and you learn.
Yeah.
I think with risk taking too, I realize that, it's from what your husband actually has all over his Instagram and his LinkedIn is fail big.
Yes, for sure.
It's a scary thing to do.
Yeah.
But you too, the reason why I think me and my husband gravitate to you guys is that you aren't afraid of taking risks and looking at every situation, and because you could play it safe.
Yeah.
In any job, and especially in fashion and interior design.
Yep.
You can basically copy people, but the fact that you're going and taking a new avenue and looking at things through a different eye is really cool. And I can't wait to see where you grow with that.
Well, and that's kind of why Bone came to be, because I had all these ideas of like, oh, if I could only get my hands on a jacket that looked like this or jeans that looked like this, but I never could find it. And so I was like, well, screw that. I'm just going to make it myself. Yeah. And it started out with my friend and I were making jumpsuits. We were like, we just want like a killer jumpsuit that you can wear to the grocery store, but then you can also put on heels and a leather jacket and wear it out.
Yeah.
And that was a big fail. I mean, they didn't turn out anything like we liked.
Yeah.
But we still wore it and we were like, hell yeah, just rock it. And so, yeah, I mean, now Bone has kind of come full circle to just be like, I want this. I can't find this.
So I'm gonna do it.
So I'm going to do
Yeah.
it. And I have so many jackets that like are thrown in a pile of like, oh God, what was I thinking? Why did I paint that?
Yeah.
Like, you know, was I like on too much caffeine? Did I like, was I just shaking while I was painting that? So you have to fail. But also it's like the first time I wore a jacket, I was like, oh God, are people going to be like, who scribbled on that?
Yeah.
And you just can't care.
Well, I love seeing the evolution in people because, again, from the couple that I saw from afar to the couple that I now know and I call my friends, and what you're building together is so incredible. And you've got a great partner you do it with, and he's got an incredible partner in you.
Thanks.
I can't wait. As you guys, are listening to this, I'm going to have Kyrie let you know where you can find her. And it is Kyrie, the Flesh and Bone song, where the flesh is the flesh and the bone is the bone. And bone, by the way.
I know. I didn't plan that.
That's a little weird.
That is a little weird.
And
maybe
if
it was meant to be.
And if you're ever around me and you call her Kyrie, I'm going to correct your ass.
Yeah.
But on that note, I will tell you, when we wrap this up, I'm going to throw it to you to let people know about where they can see you on social media and see and follow your journey with what this becomes.
Yes.
And then also where you go.
Okay.
But before I do that, you need to hit the subscribe button right now.
Yes.
And you have to keep watching because the next episode is with, well, I'd like to say the better half, but I've fallen in love with you.
Oh, me
too.
too.
Yeah. So you're going to have to click that subscribe button. You've got to keep watching. And then what's even more fun is we're going to get both of them in the hot seat. And you're going to find out a lot of cool things about this couple that not only fails together, wins together, but they're also philanthropic, big-hearted, cool people that are making stuff happen and making moves in Kansas City and out of Kansas City. Guess what? It can be done. Anyway, where can they find you on social media?
So you guys can find me on Kyrie Quinn. That's just on Instagram. And then also Bone Basics on Instagram as well. And the Etsy page is in the bio.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
I know
It's
you'll
a
be
blast.
back because I can't wait to see what happens.
I know. We'll see what happens.
I love it. The Quinns, they're awesome. See you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.